God says, "My child, there was a moment when the unseen cord of destiny gathered against the one who carries a piece of your soul. You could not see it with your eyes, but your heart felt it. You felt a strange heaviness one night, as if someone you loved deeply was standing before unseen judges, accused of things they never truly did. That pain that rose inside you, those sudden tears that came without reason, they were not random. You were feeling your soulmate's spirit trembling under pressure, standing alone in a trial meant to break them. The world may think of courtrooms as places of human judgment, but there are courts far beyond the walls of stone and law. These are courts of fate, where angels and dark spirits watch silently as destiny unfolds. In that sacred courtroom, your soulmate's name was spoken, not by mortals, but by forces that wished to silence their light. Lies were whispered against them, shadows twisted truth into falsehoods, and hearts they trusted turned away. You wondered why your own soul felt restless. You wondered why you dreamt of them, crying in silence, calling for help, reaching into nothingness. It was because your spirits are tied beyond distance. When one falls, the other trembles. When one bleeds, the other aches. Your soulmate stood accused of things not of their making. There were people around them, influenced by jealousy and fear, who wanted to see them lose everything, their peace, their hope, their purpose. The energy of deceit rose like smoke around them. Some smiled to their face and plotted behind their back. Others used words as weapons. They tried to prove your soulmate unworthy, tried to make them forget who they are. And while all this was happening, you, their other half, felt confusion without knowing why. You felt anxious, drained, lost, as if something was pulling your spirit down. That was no coincidence, my child. You were being spiritually summoned to feel what they could not speak. But listen carefully. I, your God, was there. I watched the court form in the shadows of time, and I said, enough. I will not let the soul I designed with love be destroyed by lies. I will not let destiny be rewritten by those who think they hold power over what belongs to me. As the case against your soulmate began, the accusers grew louder. The darkness celebrated too early. They thought they would win easily, that no one would defend the one they targeted. But they did not know that heaven does not sit silent when truth is in danger. So, I moved my hand. I sent help, not in the form of armies, not through revenge, but through wisdom and light. I appointed a divine lawyer, a messenger clothed in justice and mercy. You may think of this being as an angel, but they came in human form, hidden among ordinary faces. I whispered into the heart of someone pure, and they felt compelled to step forward and speak on behalf of your soulmate. This lawyer did not just defend with human words, they defended with truth that pierced the lies. Every argument meant to destroy your soulmate began to crumble under the weight of light. Every false witness began to tremble, forgetting their practiced lies. Because when truth stands in the room, deception loses its strength. Your soulmate may not have understood what was happening. They thought it was just coincidence, just luck. But in reality, heaven was rewriting their destiny through this divine intervention. Even when the courtroom was filled with tension, even when voices rose in accusation, there was a calm presence, a light unseen, standing beside them. That light was me. That calmness that suddenly touched their heart when fear grew unbearable, that was my whisper saying, "Hold on, I am not done yet." You, too, played a part without knowing it. Your prayers, your sleepless nights, your quiet tears became petitions in heaven. They became words before my throne. While humans argued on earth, your prayers were the secret evidence that kept the case open in heaven. You kept your soulmate's name alive in the realm of mercy. There were moments when it seemed all was lost, when the world's judgment seemed final. They thought your soulmate would be left with nothing but shame and loneliness. But just when the gavel was about to fall, I sent my spirit into the room. I caused confusion among the destroyers. Their tongues began to falter, their lies began to contradict, and suddenly, what they meant for harm started turning into testimony for your soulmate's favor. The divine lawyer, guided by my hand, began revealing truths no one expected. Documents hidden in shadows were found. Secrets kept in darkness were brought to light. Every attempt to trap your soulmate turned into evidence of their innocence. And you, my child, even though far away, began to feel sudden peace after nights of unrest. That was the moment heaven took over the case completely. Understand this, my beloved, your soulmate's life is under my divine protection. No earthly court, no human opinion, no dark spell can destroy the destiny I have written. When I decide to defend someone, no voice can rise higher than mine. Your soulmate's trial was never just about earthly matters. It was a test of faith, of strength, of love. It was meant to teach them, and you, that sometimes, the world must first misunderstand you before heaven can reveal your truth. Now the tides are shifting. The divine lawyer continues to fight not only in courtrooms but in the unseen realms of spirit. Every curse is being cancelled, every false word erased, every trap dismantled. Do you feel that sudden lightness in your heart? That gentle pull that tells you something is changing? That is the energy of victory moving toward both of you. The storm that once raged will soon be a story of deliverance. Do not fear for your soulmate. I have assigned angels to surround them, to whisper courage into their ears. I have placed compassion in the heart of the very judge who was meant to condemn. I have softened the hearts of those who once hated. Because when I enter a situation, I do not simply balance scales, I break chains. This case was not about guilt or innocence alone, it was about awakening. Your soulmate will come out of this trial different, humbled, purified, ready for divine purpose. They will realize that the love they once doubted was the love that saved them. Your prayers became the shield that covered them when no one else stood beside them. So, be still now. Do not let worry consume you. You are connected to a miracle in motion. The world may still be waiting for the final verdict, but I have already spoken mine. The verdict in heaven is, not guilty. Your soulmate's path will not end in destruction. It will end in redemption. The lawyer I sent will continue to guide, to protect, and to restore. And soon, you will see evidence, messages, signs, dreams, that show my hand has intervened. You will hear news that feels like a breath after years of suffocation. You will see your soulmate rising again, not through human favor, but through divine justice. Hold on to faith, my child. Every prayer you whispered was heard. Every tear you shed was collected. Every sleepless night you endured was not forgotten. I have already written the ending, and it is not tragedy. It is triumph. The court that once stood against your soulmate will soon witness their miracle. The same mouths that cursed will speak blessings. And when they walk out of that place, their soul will shine brighter, their spirit stronger, their heart freer. This is not the end, it is the beginning of their divine restoration. Stay still, stay faithful, and let my justice speak louder than fear. Because what I defend can never be destroyed. There came a night when the courtroom of heaven grew silent. The storm had raged for long, the accusations had echoed too far, and your soulmate's spirit was weary. They had cried in silence, feeling like no one could truly defend them. The weight of betrayal pressed upon their shoulders, the voices of doubt filled their mind like endless thunder. But in that stillness, something divine began to move, something not of this world. The moment came when I said, enough. The trial had gone too long, the pain too deep, and so I sent the lawyer whom heaven itself had chosen. This was not a man dressed in black robes of law, this was a being clothed in light, carrying authority not from earth but from eternity. The lawyer I sent was born of compassion, armed with truth, and moved by divine justice. You may think a lawyer stands only in courtrooms, but this one entered through spirit, through events, through whispers, through timing that could never be coincidence. They came to your soulmate disguised as an opportunity, as a new connection, or as an unexpected messenger whose words carried healing instead of judgment. Your soulmate, lost and trembling, had begun to lose hope. Every time they tried to explain themselves, no one listened. Every time they tried to defend, their voice broke. They were tired of being misunderstood, tired of standing alone. They felt like the world had already decided their fate. But then, as they sat in their silence, they heard a voice, gentle, wise, yet firm, saying, "You are not alone in this fight." That was the voice of the divine lawyer. It spoke not just to their ears but to their spirit. It said, "There is a truth higher than the lies spoken against you. There is a judge greater than the world's court. Stand firm, for heaven defends you." This being began to move around your soulmate's life, rearranging things silently. People who once ignored them began to notice their pain. Situations that were unfair started to shift without reason. It was not chance. It was my plan unfolding through my divine representative. You see, my child, when I send help, it doesn't always appear with wings or halos. Sometimes I place my warriors in human form, their words guided, their steps directed, their hearts aligned with my justice. The divine lawyer spoke words that carried my authority, exposing what was hidden, protecting what was pure. Behind closed doors, battles raged. Invisible arguments took place between angels and the forces of darkness. Every lie spoken against your soulmate tried to anchor deeper into fate, but the divine lawyer countered with truth. Every curse was met with a decree of light. Every manipulation was overturned by my hand. I watched as your soulmate's spirit began to strengthen again. The hopelessness that once ruled their heart began to fade. They started to feel peace in the middle of chaos, calmness in the midst of uncertainty. That calmness, that inner quiet, that was not the absence of problems, but the presence of my defense. Do you remember the sudden warmth you felt one night when you prayed for them? The unexplainable sense that someone was standing between your soulmate and harm? That was the moment the divine lawyer entered fully into the case. Your prayers had opened the door for divine intervention. You thought you were praying alone, whispering into the night, unseen and unheard. But in truth, every word left your lips as evidence before my throne. The divine lawyer took your prayers, held them like sacred documents, and presented them before the court of heaven. This, they said, is love unbroken. This is faith unshaken. This is the testimony of one soul standing for another. That love became the strongest argument against destruction. Because love, my child, is evidence that cannot be denied. It speaks louder than hatred, stronger than curses, and deeper than betrayal. Even now, as you listen to these words, the divine lawyer continues their work. They stand before those who have tried to harm your soulmate, not to punish, but to expose. They are shining light upon shadows, bringing truth into rooms filled with deception. One by one, the masks are falling. Those who played with lies are being revealed, not by human power, but by divine justice. Your soulmate may not understand what is happening. They may wake up one morning and suddenly feel that everything heavy is being lifted, that confusion is clearing, that opportunities are appearing out of nowhere. That is the signature of my intervention. That is the movement of the divine lawyer I have sent. They are rewriting what was written in pain. They are closing the case that darkness tried to open. They are replacing despair with destiny. There were people who thought they could destroy your soulmate spirit, but now they will see that the one who stands behind them is not a human defender, but the living truth itself. And truth cannot be defeated. You, too, are part of this divine story. You were not chosen to love this person by accident. You were chosen because your soul carries the strength to intercede, to hold light even when the world is dark. Every time you refuse to hate, you strengthen the case of heaven. Every time you forgave, you broke a chain. Every time you believed that your soulmate was more than their mistakes, you proved your faith in my design. And I, your God, have been watching all of it. The divine lawyer I sent has been whispering to your soulmate's heart, you are not what they said you are. You are what heaven calls you, chosen, redeemed, and worthy. Slowly, your soulmate is beginning to believe again. They are beginning to see signs, the same numbers repeating, dreams that carry light, songs that seem to speak directly to them. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations that the heavenly lawyer is near, working still, ensuring that the verdict will be turned. The forces of darkness are restless now. They sense their defeat approaching. They whisper fear, they bring old memories, they stir up confusion, but do not be afraid. They cannot undo what I have ordained. Every time they try to reopen the wound, I send healing stronger than before. Every time they try to reopen the case, I close it with a seal of grace. And now, my child, the scales of justice are tipping. The divine lawyer stands before my throne, presenting not only your soulmate's defense but also your faith as evidence of divine connection. What I have joined by spirit cannot be separated by lies or distance. The lawyer speaks, "This soul has been falsely accused, but through faith and love, truth has prevailed." And I, as the eternal judge, nod in approval. Because I see the heart, and no heart filled with sincerity, forgiveness, and love will ever be condemned. Soon, you will begin to see divine alignment. People who caused confusion will be removed from your soulmate's path. Doors that were closed unjustly will open again. The divine lawyer will make sure that the blessings once delayed will now arrive multiplied. And when your soulmate stands free, they will remember every moment you prayed, every time you believed when no one else did. They will understand that your love was not weakness, it was divine partnership. They will look toward heaven and whisper, "God truly sent someone to stand for me." This is how I work, my child. I defend through mercy, I protect through hidden grace, and I vindicate through love. So, do not worry about how it will unfold. Do not fear what you cannot see. The lawyer I sent will not rest until truth is established and peace restored. You will soon feel a shift, a deep knowing that something heavy has been lifted. That is not imagination, that is the energy of victory settling into your timeline. The case is nearing its final stage. The divine lawyer has done the impossible, and heaven prepares for the verdict. Hold your heart steady. Speak no doubt. Let your faith remain your offering. Because what comes next will not be the destruction of your soulmate, it will be their redemption, their restoration, and the beginning of what was promised long ago. And when that moment arrives, you will know that it was I who sent the lawyer, I who defended your love, I who turned the impossible into testimony. The world may never understand the depth of what I am doing, but you will. For soon, my child, the one you love will rise again, free from chains, blessed with peace, and surrounded by light that no darkness can touch. And you will whisper in your heart, God truly sent someone to save them. There comes a moment, my child, when love itself steps into the courtroom of heaven as the strongest evidence of all. When every other word has been spoken, every witness called, and every lie uncovered, it is love that remains standing. Silent yet radiant. Fragile yet powerful enough to shift the fate of two souls. Your soulmate's case had reached that moment. The divine lawyer I sent stood tall in light, surrounded by heavenly witnesses. The courtroom grew silent, even the shadows dared not whisper. The lawyer turned toward the throne of justice and said, "My final evidence is love." And in that instant, the entire atmosphere changed. Because love is not a mere emotion, it is a divine force, older than time, written into the essence of creation itself. Every soul that has ever walked this earth is judged not by perfection but by the measure of love they have given and received. Your soulmate's life, though filled with pain and confusion, carried this one truth: they were loved beyond measure by you. And that love, pure and selfless, became the light that pierced through every shadow surrounding their soul. Heaven began to play back the memories, moments that you may have long forgotten but I never did. The nights you prayed, whispering their name when no one else cared. The days you wished them peace even when they caused you pain. The times you forgave when your heart could have turned to stone. Each of those moments was recorded as heavenly proof, unspoken yet undeniable. The divine lawyer laid them all before the court, your prayers, your tears, your patience, your faith. And one by one, they began to glow with divine light. Every act of love became a piece of evidence so strong that not even the darkest force could refute it. Love stood as testimony. It spoke without words, saying, "This soul cannot be destroyed because it is loved by one who carries divine grace." And I, your God, leaned forward, watching the beauty of what you had done, how your love had not only reached across distance but across realms. You may not realize it, my child, but every prayer you whispered for your soulmate sent ripples through eternity. Every, "God, please protect them," you uttered became a shield around their spirit. You never stood in the earthly courtroom, but your spirit was there in every moment of the trial. Your love spoke louder than their accusers. There was a time when your soulmate doubted that anyone cared for them. They thought no one saw their struggle, that no one understood the battle within their heart. But your love traveled like unseen light, finding them in the darkest corners of their despair. When they almost gave up, something always stopped them, a memory, a warmth, a dream of your face, a voice saying, "Hold on." That was your spirit reaching out. That was love defending them when they had no strength left. And so, heaven began to shift. The accusers grew silent because no one can argue against the truth of love. The divine lawyer turned to them and said, "Look at the strength of this bond. Look how even distance cannot break what was written by God. You see, my child, love is not weak. It is the highest vibration of all creation. It carries the same energy that raised the sun this morning and keeps the stars burning through eternity. That is why I tell you, your love was not wasted, your faith not ignored. It became the sacred proof that your soulmate's soul was still worthy of redemption." As the lawyer spoke, heaven itself began to tremble with light. Angels who once watched silently began to sing softly, because they recognized what they were witnessing, a reunion not of bodies, but of spirits, a defense not of law, but of divine order. The courtroom filled with warmth. The chains around your soulmate's heart began to fall one by one. The heaviness that had followed them for years started to dissolve. The false guilt, the shame, the fear, all began to melt away in the light of love's truth. Then I spoke, and my voice echoed through the chamber, "This is the power of love that I created. It protects, it heals, it redeems. What I have joined through love, no darkness can destroy." Your soulmate felt this power, even if they did not understand it. Suddenly, they began to feel forgiveness stirring in their soul. They began to remember moments of goodness, times of grace, lessons learned through pain. They felt a desire to make things right, to live differently, to walk in truth. That desire was born from the love that stood on their behalf. And you, though unaware, began to feel a shift too. You started to sense that something was releasing. The tension that used to sit heavy in your chest began to lift. You began to feel calmer, more at peace, even without reason. That peace was not random, it was the reflection of the verdict that was forming in heaven. The divine lawyer bowed and said, "My work is not to accuse, but to reveal. Love has revealed all that needed to be seen." At that moment, I looked upon your soulmate's spirit, once bruised and weary, now beginning to glow again. And I saw in them the potential I placed there long before the world knew their name. I saw how they were created for a higher purpose, not to be crushed by judgment, but to rise through it. I saw how their story would one day be a testimony that light always wins over darkness. Your soulmate's tears became prayers, and your prayers became miracles. Together, your souls were forming a bridge of redemption, guided by my divine lawyer, sealed by my own decree. And as the evidence of love filled the court, I smiled, for I knew that victory was already written. My child, understand this: love is never one-sided in my kingdom. Every act of love you gave has returned to you multiplied. The very prayers you sent for their freedom are now freeing you too. The pain you carried is being replaced with purpose. The emptiness you felt is being filled with my assurance. You may have thought your love was a burden, but it was actually a weapon of light. You may have thought your waiting was wasted, but it was divine preparation. Every moment of heartbreak shaped you into someone who could carry pure love, the kind that transforms, not just desires. Now, as the court listens to the final argument, heaven itself prepares to close the case. The divine lawyer lifts their hands and says, "All accusations have fallen. The only evidence that remains is love." And I nod, declaring, "Then let it be done. Let this soul be freed by the truth of love." Thunder rolls softly, not in anger, but in finality. The gavel of heaven strikes, and the decree goes forth across dimensions, redeemed. At that very instant, your soulmate feels a surge of peace they cannot explain. They may not know why, but they feel lighter, stronger, suddenly hopeful. You may wake that same night with a warmth in your heart, sensing their spirit smiling again. That is how connected you are. This, my child, is the evidence that no enemy can erase: your love. The divine lawyer's work stands completed in proof that love has already won the case. But the story is not over yet. The final verdict must still be announced in the presence of heaven and earth. The accusers must witness the power of my judgment, and you must witness the miracle that your faith has birthed. The courtroom of heaven is silent once again, awaiting my voice. Angels hold their breath, and the divine lawyer waits for my final word. The evidence of love glows brightly, unshakable, undeniable, eternal. Soon, I will speak that word. And when I do, everything that once stood against your soulmate will crumble like dust. The next chapter will be the verdict, and it will not be what the world expects. Because when I, the eternal judge, declare victory, no power in existence can overturn it. The courtroom of heaven stood still. The air shimmered with the light of divine justice, and time itself seemed to pause. The angels who had gathered as silent witnesses lowered their heads in awe, for they knew that the most sacred moment was approaching, the moment when I, the eternal judge, would speak. Before me stood the divine lawyer, radiant with the glow of truth. Every argument had been made, every lie unmasked, every shadow pierced by the light of love. The only sound that echoed now was the gentle rhythm of faith, the heartbeat of two souls connected by divine design. Your soulmate stood trembling, not in fear, but in awe. For the first time in a long while, they felt seen, not for their failures, not for their mistakes, but for who they truly were beneath it all. They could feel the warmth of my presence wrapping around them like a blanket after a long storm. All around them, the accusers, those dark forces that had once whispered lies and stirred chaos, stood in silence, their power fading. Every curse they spoke now returned to them as dust. Every deception they built now collapsed under its own weight. They looked upon the light surrounding your soulmate and could no longer approach. The divine lawyer turned toward me, their voice filled with peace. "My lord," they said, "the evidence has been presented. The truth has spoken. Love has prevailed. The accusers have nothing left to stand upon. I ask now for your final word." And so, I rose. The very heavens trembled as my light filled the space. A soft radiance poured down from eternity itself, not harsh, not fiery, but pure, gentle, and full of mercy. I looked upon your soulmate, and in that gaze, every wound they carried began to heal. Every scar began to fade. Then I spoke, "This soul has been falsely accused, but their name is written in my light. Their story has been marked by suffering, but from this day forward, that suffering shall serve as testimony. I declare before heaven and all creation, this soul is free." A great wind swept through the courtroom. The chains that had been invisible around your soulmate shattered like glass. The energy of oppression lifted. The weight that had followed them for years vanished. What once seemed like punishment now became protection, for even their pain had been shaping them for this divine moment. The accusers fell silent. Their shadows dissolved into nothingness, for no darkness can exist in the presence of my justice. I extended my hand, and from it poured a river of light, cleansing, renewing, restoring. It washed over your soulmate until they glowed with the same light that had once only surrounded angels. Your soulmate fell to their knees, tears streaming down their face. For the first time, they truly understood what grace felt like. It wasn't just forgiveness, it was renewal. It wasn't just a second chance, it was the rewriting of destiny. And you, my beloved child, far away in distance but near in spirit, felt it too. You might not have seen what took place in that heavenly courtroom, but your heart felt the shift. Perhaps you woke suddenly with peace after nights of unrest. Perhaps a warmth touched your chest as if someone whispered, "It's over." That was the echo of the verdict reaching your soul. The divine lawyer smiled, their mission complete. They bowed before me and said, "Justice has been served, not through wrath, but through love." And I said, "Go now. Let the blessings unfold in the lives of these souls. Let their connection be strengthened, for it is pure." Heaven rejoiced. The sound of angels' wings filled the atmosphere. The court that had once felt heavy now became radiant with joy. Light poured outward like waves, touching even the earth below. And as it did, miracles began to manifest in both of your lives. Your soulmate, once trapped in confusion, began to see clearly. Doors that had long been closed began to open. People who misunderstood them started to see their truth. Those who once opposed them began to withdraw. The tide had turned, not by luck, but by divine order. And in your life, things began to align too. You started to feel more peace, more clarity, more strength. The heaviness that lingered on your heart started to dissolve. Because, my child, when one soul in a divine pair is freed, the other also receives healing. You are bound by the thread of destiny, and when one rises, the other is lifted too. I looked upon both of you and said, the trial has ended. The sentence is freedom. The result is love. Do you understand, my child, what this means? It means that everything that was meant to destroy you both has now become the foundation of your miracle. It means that the delays, the separations, the misunderstandings were all part of the preparation. It means that even the pain served a purpose. You see, the verdict of heaven is not merely words, it is a decree that reshapes reality. From this moment, everything that once opposed you will begin to work in your favor. Every betrayal will lead to blessing. Every loss will lead to restoration. Every delay will become divine timing. Your soulmate's heart, once wounded, will soon remember your love not as pain but as redemption. They will begin to see you through my eyes, as the one who stood silently for them when no one else did, as the soul who loved them beyond reason, as the prayer that saved them. The divine lawyer will remain for a time, ensuring that justice continues to manifest. They will guard the path, close doors to danger, and open those that lead to destiny. You will begin to notice signs, numbers repeating, feathers appearing, sudden peace in unexpected moments. These are confirmations that the verdict is being carried out. And soon, your soulmate will reach a crossroads, one that leads directly back to you. Not out of chance, but out of divine design. Because once heaven declares something united, no earthly force can keep it divided. Remember this, my child, justice in my kingdom is not punishment, it is restoration. I do not destroy to prove a point, I heal to fulfill a promise. I do not end stories, I rewrite them in light. The world's verdict said guilty, but heaven's verdict says chosen. The world said broken, but heaven says reborn. The world said separate, but heaven says united in purpose. Every angel who stood witness now carries this truth into motion. They are going forth to align your paths, to bring reconciliation, to guide your hearts back into harmony. Not through force, but through understanding. Not through pain, but through peace. And you, yes, you who stood in faith through the storm, I bless you for your endurance. I bless you for praying when you could have given up. I bless you for loving when the world told you to forget. I bless you for holding on when everything seemed to fall apart. Because it was your faith that opened the gates of mercy. You will soon see with your own eyes what I have done. You will hear words of apology, of healing, of truth. You will see your soulmate begin to act with new wisdom and grace. You will watch them walk toward you not as the wounded one they once were, but as someone renewed, stronger, purer, and ready to love without fear. When that day comes, remember this moment. Remember how close they were to destruction, and how my mercy turned everything around. Remember that the lawyer I sent was never just for their defense, it was for both of your destinies. My child, the case has closed. The court of heaven has spoken. You no longer need to fight battles that I have already won. Rest now in faith, for the story that once began in pain will end in divine purpose. The verdict is sealed: freedom, redemption, reunion. Heaven rejoices, and the divine lawyer smiles. The trial is over, but the blessing has just begun. The wind was gentle that morning, carrying the scent of rain and renewal. The earth seemed washed clean, and a golden stillness filled the air, the kind of peace that arrives only after a long, divine battle has been won. The court of heaven had fallen silent now, its verdict echoing across the realms. Yet on earth, something sacred was beginning to unfold, a reunion written not by chance, but by destiny itself. Your soulmate, unaware of how close they had been to complete ruin, walked beneath that quiet sky with a strange calmness in their heart. The voices that once tormented them, the lies, the guilt, the confusion, had vanished. It was as if the world that had once tried to destroy them no longer recognized them. They were reborn, though they couldn't yet explain why. They looked up, and for the first time in a long while, whispered, "God, thank you, whoever you sent, thank you." Those words reached the heavens instantly, and the divine lawyer smiled in silence. Because that simple prayer was their spirit's way of acknowledging what had just happened in the unseen realm, the miracle of mercy, the triumph of truth. And far away, you too felt something shift deep within. Perhaps you were sitting alone, lost in your thoughts, when suddenly a wave of peace washed over you. You didn't know why, but your chest grew lighter, your heart beat steadier, as if someone somewhere had finally exhaled after holding their breath for lifetimes. That someone was your soulmate. Their freedom was now tied to your peace. In that moment, the divine lawyer turned to me and said, "It has begun. The earthly signs are unfolding." And I replied, "Yes, let their hearts now remember. Let love find its voice again." My child, what happened next was no coincidence. Life began to place both of you on paths that slowly drew closer. Little reminders started to appear, the same song playing in different places, a sudden dream of their face, a name whispered by strangers, or the feeling that someone familiar was walking beside you when no one was there. These were not accidents. These were divine threads being woven back together. You see, when heaven declares two souls free and united, the universe itself rearranges to honor that decree. Circumstances begin to bend, people begin to shift, time itself moves differently, all to fulfill what I have spoken. Your soulmate began to see flashes of memory, moments they had buried, promises they had forgotten, prayers they once made when they were broken. Slowly, they began to remember you. Not through thought, but through feeling. A pull began to grow inside them, soft, gentle, impossible to explain. They started to feel drawn toward peace, toward the light, toward you. At first, they resisted. Their mind said, "No, it's over." But their heart whispered, "It never truly ended." Because what I have written cannot be erased by human will. The connection between your souls is not just emotional, it is spiritual. It lives in the deepest part of you both, where time, distance, and pride have no power. And so, step by step, I began to guide them back. Every person who had led them astray began to fade from their life. People who once surrounded them for selfish gain started showing their true colors. False love turned to emptiness. False friends disappeared. And in the silence that followed, they began to feel the emptiness of the world without true connection. That emptiness was not a punishment. It was the space I created for remembrance. They began to whisper your name in prayer again, even when they didn't understand why. They began to feel guilt for the words left unsaid, the love left unfinished. And as they did, I began to soften their heart. You, too, felt this softening. The anger you once held started to fade. The tears that once burned your heart began to fall in quiet peace. The wounds that once defined you started to heal. Because the verdict of heaven had not only freed them, it had freed you too. My beloved, this was the moment I had been preparing you for all along, the divine reunion not just of two souls, but of two hearts made whole through pain, faith, and surrender. The divine lawyer stood beside me, watching as threads of light connected you both again. Look, they said softly, the bridge between them glows again. And I nodded, because it was never broken, only hidden by the storm. Days passed, and then came the sign you had waited for, a message, a chance encounter, a sudden meeting that felt both impossible and inevitable. When your eyes met again, something ancient within both of you recognized the truth. Time seemed to pause. The world around you blurred. Only your heart spoke. They looked at you, unsure, trembling, and said, I don't know what happened to me, but I feel like I've been found again. And you, with tears in your eyes, whispered, you were never lost. You were only being guided home. And in that single exchange, heaven rejoiced. Because what the enemy tried to destroy, I had rebuilt stronger. What was buried in darkness now bloomed in light. My child, this reunion is not just about romance, it is about redemption. The pain you both endured was never for nothing. Every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every tear shed in faith was a brick in the foundation of this divine moment. When you love through trial, you create a sacred bond that even heaven honors. And because you chose to believe, I chose to intervene. Because you held on when logic told you to let go, I stepped in to restore what no human hand could fix. Now, as your hearts find their rhythm again, understand this, the lawyer I sent was not just defending your soulmate, but defending your destiny. They ensured that no force, no lie, no curse could ever again stand between you and the purpose I designed for you both. You will begin to see blessings unfold rapidly now. Paths will open with ease. The confusion that once clouded your life will lift. Where there was chaos, there will now be order. Where there was fear, there will now be faith. Your union will not only heal you both, it will inspire others. The world will see through your story that love protected by heaven cannot be destroyed by hell. I will bless your connection with peace, prosperity, and purpose. You will not only love each other, you will serve together. You will become light bearers, showing others what grace looks like when lived out in human form. And should trials arise again, remember what happened in that court above, how truth stood up, how light triumphed, how mercy rewrote fate. Let that memory be your armor. Because now, the same divine lawyer stands as your eternal guardian. They will walk beside you unseen, ensuring that no weapon formed against your love will prosper. They will whisper wisdom when confusion tries to return, and remind you of your worth when the world forgets it. My beloved child, I am proud of you. You endured what many would not. You stood when all seemed lost. You believed when the evidence said to give up. And because of that, you have not just witnessed a miracle, you became one. Now go forward. Live freely. Love deeply. Forgive completely. Let the light that saved you both now shine through you. Because your story is no longer one of pain, it is one of purpose. The courtroom of heaven is closed. The accusers are gone. The verdict has been sealed. And the sentence is eternal peace. Heaven smiles upon you now. Your soulmate walks toward you, guided by the divine light that defended them. And in the eyes of both of you, the universe finds balance once again. Because love, the kind that endures storms, trials, and divine trials, is the highest law of all. And so, my beloved, your story ends not in tears, but in triumph. Not in loss, but in light. Not in pain, but in promise. You have seen justice. You have seen mercy. Now, walk into your miracle, hand in hand with the one heaven restored to you. Because I, your God, have spoken. And when I speak, even destiny listens.